Hi, this is Scott Marshburn with eCabinets Tips and Tricks. Today I'm going to show you how you can make a under sink drawer box for your cabinet. What I've got here is I've got a drawer box and I've removed the back from it, and we'll go over my insets because they are going to be important. We're going to need to know what they are. My left and my right inset for my drawer box is 1/2 inch. The top inset is 3/4, the bottom inset is 1/4, and the back inset is 3 inches. So, the material that I'm using is 3/4 inch generic for the left, the right, and the front, and 1/4 inch generic for the bottom. Now, all that's important. We're going to be using that information to put our under sink components in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a left tray, a right tray, and a front tray. And I'm going to use stretchers for that. But before I get to putting those in, I need some helper stretchers because we can't associate stretchers to drawer box parts. So I'm going to click on my left end and my right end. But before I do that, I need to set up some construction settings. So I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to set this to be 1 inch, and I'm going to select a material that I have set up for my dummy stretchers or my helper stretchers, and it's a dummy material, do not cut. I've got a red texture on it, and I've got it 1/32 of an inch thick. I'm going to click OK. Now I can put my helper stretchers in. I'm going to put a left-right stretcher to represent the front of my drawer box, and a left-right stretcher to represent the back of my drawer box. So I'm going to click on my left end and my right end and add a stretcher. And it's got to be an up-down orientation. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and add my next one. Make sure it's up-down orientation. And now I need to adjust those. So I'm going to click on this one. Now you see it didn't highlight, but my cursor did turn to that little circle it turns into when it's thinking. I know that it's selected. Sometimes when you got stretchers on top of stretchers like this, you don't see it select. It actually selects the one that's underneath. So I'm just going to go adjust stretcher and advance here. And this is the first stretcher that I want to deal with. And I'm going to be working with Inset 4. What I want is this to represent the inside of the front of my drawer box. And Inset 2 here, I'm going to set it to be on the mid rail and the top of the mid rail. So let me go ahead and get that done. I'm going to go Inset 2 and mid rail and the top of it. Inset 4. I want it to be, like I said, flush to the inside of my drawer front. Now, I have a 0 scribe on the front of my drawer front, and I'm using 3/4 inch material. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mid rail and the front of the mid rail. I'm going to click OK. And under Inset 2, I'm going to set it to be 0, and I'm going to lock it. Inset 4. Now, this needs to be whatever the front inset is for your drawer box. So in other words, if you got a inset drawer front going on here, and you got the front of that drawer box inset by the thickness of your face frame here, or the thickness of your drawer front, you're going to need to accommodate for that, plus the material thickness of the front of your drawer box. In this case, I've got my front inset at 0, and I'm using 3/4 inch material, so I'm going to go minus 3/4, and I'm going to lock it. And that should put us flush, put the back side of this flush to the front of our drawer box. So I'm going to click done, and that looks like it done pretty good. So let me go ahead and adjust this one. We'll click on it and adjust. Now this one, we're dealing with Inset 3, and we're going to associate it to the front of the back. So I'm going to go Advance, and Inset 2, I'm going to go ahead and set it on my mid rail and the top of my mid rail. and inset 3 is going to be on my back and the front of my back. Okay, because inset 3 is going to represent the inside, what would be the inside of the back of our jewel box. Now, I'm associating this to the front of my back. If I want to remove this back, before I actually remove it, I need to come in here and change the association, okay, from the back to one of the ends and the back of one of these ends, because what we're going to do is we're going to set this to be whatever the back inset for our drawer box is. So if you remove the back, it's going to go off at the back of one of these ends here. So make sure you remember that. If you remove this back and this thing right here is associated to that, you're going to lose a bunch of work. So make sure you remember that. So inset 2 is going to be set to 0 and lock. And inset 3, I'm going to set it at -3 because that's the inset for the back of my drawer box. So I'm going to go OK or check that to lock it, and I'm going to go done. We should be 3 inches in here. And let's see, that looks good. Now I can create the rest of my helper stretchers off of those two. So I'm going to create one for our right side of our left tray and one for the left side of our right tray. So I'm going to click on that one and add a stretcher. And it's going to be an up-down orientation also. I'm going to go ahead and make my next one. So add a stretcher, up-down orientation, and put that one in there. Now I'm going to need 2 more, because what I want to have happen here is the components that we put in here, we can't associate them to any of these drawer box parts, and I want them to adjust just like the drawer box does based on the opening height. Okay, so I said a while ago that these were going to represent our tray, but they're not. I'm sorry about that. What they're going to represent is the left side and the right side of my drawer box. Got a little bit ahead of myself there. But let's go ahead and put those height stretchers in there, height regulating stretchers, or whatever you want to call them. I'm going to click on both of those and add a stretcher. Now this time I want a left-right orientation. Okay, so I'm going to go okay. So there's the one for the top, and I need one for the bottom. I click on that one and add a stretcher. Left-right orientation. Now let's go ahead and adjust these. So I'm going to click on this one and adjust. And I'm going to go to advance, and I want inset 2 to be on my mid rail again and the top of it. Now we're dealing with inset 6 in this case, because I want this side of this stretcher to be flush to the left side, the left side of my drawer box. So inset 6 is what we're going to need to adjust here. So I'm going to go inset 6 is going to be on my left stile and the right side of my left stile. I'm going to click OK. And inset 1 is already 0, and I'm going to lock it at 0, and I'll lock this one at 0. Now inset 6, I want it to be whatever my left inset is for my drawer box, which is 1/2, and it needs to be a negative 1/2, so -1/2, and lock, and done. And you can see, if I turn this around and zoom in here, it is indeed flush. The right side of that stretcher is flush to the left side of that drawer side there. So I'm going to come over here and click on this one and do the same thing, except for the right side of my cabinet there. So I'm going to go advance, inset 2, mid rail, and top. And this time I'm dealing with inset 5. So I'm going to click on Inset 5, and I want it to be on my right style and the left side of my right style. I'm going to click OK. Now what I need to do is go ahead, and I got something going on right here. Inset 2 is saying 22. Let me go back to Advanced, and you see right here that I've got bottom rail selected, and that is wrong. I need to go to mid rail and the top of my mid rail. Inset 5, I got right style and left. I'm going to click OK, and now we're back where we need to be. I'm just going to lock U, Inset 2 there, and Inset 5, I need to be at -1/2, and lock U, and that looks good. So that looks fine to me. I want to double check something here. I think I may have locked Inset 1 on this one. I'm going to double check, and I did. I want to unlock that. That might give me a fit later on down the road. So I'm going to go done, and all that looks fine. So what I'm going to do now is work on these. So I'm going to go to Adjust Stretcher and Advance. And what I want is, I want Inset 2, which is the bottom of this stretcher, to be flush to the top of my drawer box. So I'm going to click on Inset 2, and I'm going to be on the mid rail and the bottom of my mid rail. Now I'm going to leave everything else just like it is, because we're going to make these phantom parts later on. So I'm going to go Inset 2. I want it to be whatever the top inset for my drawer box is. So 3/4 and lock, and it moved down. Let's see, I've got my inset wrong on that. Let me change you back to, I'm going to leave it like it is, but I'm going to unlock it, go back to Advanced, and I've got Inset 2 on the mid rail. That really needs to be on the top rail and the bottom of my top rail. Got a little bit confused there. I'm going to click OK, and this needs to be -3/4. It might be a +3/4, but it looks like I'm good to go there. So that's all I need for that one. I'm going to go done and see if I'm flush to the top of my drawer box, and I am. So now when I changed my opening height, that's going to adjust accordingly. Now if you put another drawer box in here and you change this, for example, from 3/4 to 1 or 1/4 inch, you're going to need to select this stretcher, come back to Stretcher Editor, select this stretcher, and go to Adjust Stretcher and make your changes. Let's go ahead and get this one like it's supposed to be. So I'm going to go Adjust Stretcher and Advance, and what I want this one to do is rest. Inset 2, I want it to follow the bottom of my drawer box, okay, the inside or the top or the bottom of my drawer box. So I'm going to go Inset 2, and this time it needs to be on the mid rail and the top of the mid rail. I'm going to click OK. Now right now it's saying 1/2 inch, and that is correct, because what I've got is I've got a 1/4 inch inset for the bottom of my drawer box, and I got a 1/4 inch material for the bottom of my drawer box. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to retype 1/2 inch just to make sure. I'm going to lock that, and I'm going to go done. And now if you change this inset right here, in other words, you put another drawer box in here and you make that different, make sure you come in here and adjust this. Also, if you change the thickness of your material, make sure you adjust that, because these are going to regulate the height of the components that we're getting ready to put in here. So let's go ahead and put some in here. I'm going to create my left tray and my right tray. So I'm going to click on this one, and this one, and add a stretcher. Actually, what I need to do before I do that, so I don't have to do it every time, I'm going to go to construction settings. I'm going to change this to 3 3/4, which is the actual height of my parts for this particular drawer box here. I'm going to select my material. It's going to be 3/4 inch generic right there. I'm going to click OK. Now, I don't have to select that every time. It's going to default to it for me. So I'm going to select you, and I'm going to add a stretcher. And I want an up-down stretcher. I'm going to click OK. Now I need another one for my right side. And add a stretcher. And make sure it's up-down orientation. So now I got my left and right in there for my tray. I'm going to click on one of them and adjust it. And what we're going to be dealing with is the Inset 6, or the right side in this case, of that tray. This is going to be we're going to be able to adjust that by using Inset 6. In other words, this is what's going to regulate the opening that we're going to cut out in that drawer box. So I'm going to go to Advanced, and I'm going to go to Inset 1. Let me hit Escape real quick and rotate this where we can see what's going on. What I'm going to do is associate Inset 1 to the bottom of this one, and Inset 2 to the bottom of this one here. So when I click on Inset 1 and go to my drop down here and just scroll down, you can see it highlight, and it defaults to the bottom, and that's what I want. Inset 2, when it highlights that one, I need to be on the bottom. It's saying the top, so I'm going to change that to the bottom. Now Inset 6, this can be whatever you need it to be, and you can come in here and change it at any time on any job or any cabinet that you have this installed in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from the left side or the right side of my left end. Now, if you're going to be pulling all your measurements or your specs for whatever it is you're working around in here from the outside of your cabinet, in this case we have a face frame, you can go to the left side of the left style there, or you can go from the inside of this, the right side of the left style, and you can even go off of this stretcher right here. It's entirely up to you, whatever method you need to use. So I'm going to select Inset 6, and I'm going to go to my left end, and I want to be on the right side of my left end. I'm going to click OK. Now Inset 1, I'm going to put it at 0 and lock it. Inset 2 is 0 and lock. And Inset 6, I'm just going to put a measurement in here right now, and it's going to be a -8. Make sure it's a negative. That's going to put it 8 inches from the inside of this left end to the outside of this tray here. So I'm going to go done. I got everything locked. I'm going to go done. Now for this one, same way, we're just working on the right side of our cabinet. Adjust stretcher. We're dealing with Inset 5 this time. So I'm going to go Advanced, and Inset 1, again, it's going to be on our height stretchers here, our helper stretchers we got to regulate the height of our components. So Inset 1 is going to be on this one right there and the bottom, and Inset 2 is going to be on the one underneath it and the bottom of it. And Inset 5 is going to be on our right end and the left side of our right end. So I'm going to click OK and change these to 0 and lock. Change you to 0 and lock. Inset 5, I'm going to put -8 inches. And this is, you come in here and you click on this stretcher and you change it to whatever you need. I'm going to go done, and that's it for those two. The next thing I'm going to do is create a front tray. Now you may not always need a front tray, you may not always be able to have a front tray. What you can do if you don't want it or don't need it is in main, you can click on that part and you can make it a phantom part, and it won't show up on any of the cut lists. So I'm going to click on this one and this one, and I'm going to add that stretcher in. 3 3/4 up down orientation and OK. So there's that. Let's go ahead and adjust it. I'm going to adjust it. I want the back side of this inset 4, okay, to pull off of the inside of our face frame. So I'm going to go advance and inset 1. I'm going to go ahead and put you in there. Let me rotate this around so I can see when I got them selected. Inset 1, bottom, inset 2 needs to be bottom. Now, inset 4 here, I'm going to set it to be on my mid rail and the front of my mid rail. Actually, yeah. Let's see. We're pulling off of the inside of our left end and right end. So let's go ahead and just pull off of the inside of our face frame. Right now I got it on the front, so I'm going to change it to the back. And like I said, you can adjust this to whatever you want. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to set U to 0. Now notice how I'm retyping these. You can try without doing it, but sometimes I've had it screw things up, so I just make it a habit of just retyping what I want there. So I got 0, 0 lock, and inset 4, I need it to be minus whatever I want to clear, whatever I think I need right here to clear my front of my sink there. So I'm just going to put minus 2 inches. Whatever you come up with, you can come in here and you can adjust that. I'm going to go done. Now you can see that we got our front tray in here. Now it's not a lot of room, but you can put a toothbrush or some toothpaste in there or whatever. But you know, if you don't have enough room for one at all, just make it a phantom part. And if you need to drop this down any of these really, you can adjust this stretcher if you want to make all these, you know, parts right here less. Just to adjust this height right here, and it'll automatically make these smaller. If you just need to adjust the front, then you just click on this and you go adjust stretcher, and you change inset 1 to whatever you need it to be, as well as inset 4. So you know, play around with this, experiment with it, and let me know what you come up with. If you come up with something different, I want to know. I want to see what everybody else comes up with. So what we need to do next is put our back in here on this one and this one. So I'm going to click on this part. Actually, I can't click on that because that's actually a drawer box part. I need to click on my helper stretcher here, this one. First, I want to click on this one, and you'll see why. It's going to put it flush to the top for me. It doesn't really matter, but whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to go to add a stretcher and up down orientation and OK. So there's that one, and notice how it's going through this. I'm going to fix that in just a second. So I'm going to click on this one and this one right here and add a stretcher. Up down orientation and OK. And we're just about done with this thing. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to go to adjust stretcher. So I'm going to go to advance, and I'm going to set my inset 1 to be on this. So inset 1 again on my helper stretcher there, and the bottom of it. Inset 2 is going to be on my other one, and the bottom of it. Now inset 4, I want to be on the back of this stretcher right here. So I'm going to click on inset 4, and when I get that one highlighted, I'm going to click on the back. That's going to put it flush to the back. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to go 0 and lock, and 0 and lock. And inset 4, I want it to be 0 also, and lock it. And now, inset 5. Remember how it was protruding through the actual drawer box end. What I'm going to do, and watch inset 6 here, okay? I'm going to change this to 3/4, and it's going to move it over, but watch inset 6. It moved that over too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to 0 and lock it. So that made that right. I'm going to go done, and I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Click on it, adjust, advanced, and inset 1 again. Bottom, inset 2, bottom. Now, inset 4, again, I want it to be on this stretcher. So, scroll down till it highlights it. And I want it to be on the back. And I'm going to go done, or OK. Now, do the same thing to this. The only difference is we're working on the left and the right. So I'm going to retype 0 here and lock it, and 0 and lock. Now, inset 5. This is inset 5. I'm going to go ahead and lock that. That way it'll stay at 0. And I can actually retype 0 if I want to make sure. So inset 6, I need it to be 3/4. And I'm going to lock it. So that should be good to go. Whoop, I need to change inset 4 to 0. And lock it. And done. So that basically completes our under sink drawer box. What we need to do now is test it. So I'm going to go back to main, and I would go ahead and save this to make sure that if we screw anything up, we got something to go back to. Make sure you save it, because you never know what's going to happen. So let's see what we're going to do here. Let's go ahead and change the depth to, or the width, I'm sorry, to 36, and the depth to 21. And that appeared to adjust properly for us. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Everything looks flush. If I hover over this, it should be 3 3/4, and it is. So, oh, that looks good. Let's play with the height, the opening height here. So I'm going to go into my face frame editor, and I'm going to change the height of that opening from 5. Let's change it to 4 and enter. And let's go back to main. And that looks good. Everything adjusted. And like I said, you can adjust these. You go back to stretcher editor, click on the stretcher, and adjust it. So let me show you this one real quick, because probably these are going to be the biggest ones that you're going to move around. Let me go back to main, or to stretcher editor, and just show you real quick how to adjust this. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go to adjust stretcher. And right now I've got it at -8. So what if we need a little bit more clearance? Let's go -6 and enter. And go to, and there you have it. That moved, everything moved. And if you want to change how this reference, right now we're going off of the inside of this end, you would just click on this, whichever stretcher you wanted to change there, and go to adjust stretcher, go to advance, and under inset 6 you would just select whatever other component you wanted to get it off of. So I'm going to go back to main, and I'll probably do another video on this, a little bit shorter one, and we'll be going through and tweaking everything. We'll actually remove this drawer box, and we'll change some of the settings, and I'll show you how to adjust all these stretchers. In the meantime, I hope this video helped you. If it did, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can get all my latest tips and tricks. And as always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.